I love this belt sander, but this aluminum platform here has got to go. It's mounted on only one side, so it gets pretty wonky. It can't hold a 90 to save its life. And the footprint of it is pretty small. This thing has got to go. Here's your actual sander where it mounts to. Here's your itty bitty aluminum platform that we're gonna replace. This is the base plate, your 6x6 square that holds everything, and then your truck drum base, which weighs 100 pounds. So for this build, I think what I'm gonna do is put a telescoping tube underneath this plate here. So I'll weld a tube to the bottom plate here, have a telescoping feature out the front, and then weld a series of square that holds a plate up above that I can set my piece that I'm trying to grind on. Now on the bottom, there's gonna be some bolts with some nuts underneath these two threaded fasteners here. And that's gonna serve to take any slop out of that telescoping tube, and it will make sure I get a good 90-degree setup every single time. I think this is gonna work. It's gonna allow for it to move in and out. And then another feature that this belt sander has is the sanding component tilts, so you can grind at a different angle, like a 45 or really whatever. It's infinitely adjustable. Having this move in and out is gonna allow for, at that 45 position, for us to retract that in all the way, so you can work on that piece. Now the top plate, I think, is gonna be shaped like this, to where you have support on either side of your actual sander, and it fits inside this slot here. It's gonna give me space and plenty of room to work with the component that I'm sanding, whatever it is, and I think it's gonna work out quite well. I have some pretty good scrap pieces for this project that I'm gonna use, so it should make it nice and easy. So I had these in my scrap pile. I got them from an underground loader. I think it's a camera system. The camera mounts on this side. It has adjustable heights with these holes here. And then this was the plate that bolted to the piece of machinery. Now, for this project, it's gonna work quite well to where this fits nicely inside of this one. It's got a nice tight fit up, and it slides in and out. I can put screws or bolts in here and here to tighten that down, and it's gonna work out. I'm not sure why whoever made this part made it the way that they made it, but they have this laser cut shape. So it's got these radii in all four corners. And then it's just a little piece that's welded to the end of this square too. Same thing on the end of this one. They have this cutout, most likely laser cut, to where it's outside radii that meet up really with the radius of the tube. And this allows for it to clear that weld seam just inside of this. You can see it right there. It rests on these edges here. And then the radii on this, the corners on this one, just slide inside of that. And so you get a really good fit up. I don't know if it's economical to add these pieces, but it sure does take care of needing to remove any weld seam on the inside of a telescoping tube. So it's an interesting design. All right, so the first step in getting this ready for our project is cutting off this little rail here, removing this, because I don't think we're gonna cut this off. And then removing this base plate as well. I think this is gonna work. So I was gonna try to save this maybe 2 inches of this square tubing here, but that's a lot of welds and brackets I'm gonna have to try to cut off. So I think what I'm gonna do is just use the Evolution cold cut saw and cut off right on the end of these, and I can weld additional material onto this, and it'll save a lot of time. 3-2-1 blocks. Yep, let's see if that works. Gotta put the hearing protection. More 3-2-1 blocks coming in clutch. Now that we cleaned up the ends, got those cut, let's cut this rail off using the bandsaw. All right, now that we cut that rail off, let's go ahead and get a grinder and grind these bases off. Nico, 4.5 inch. Those are all prepped and ready to go onto the stand. Let's go ahead and move the stand over here to where we can work on it and weld on it. And then we'll kind of think through how we want the upper arm and the top plate to look like. Let's clean this thing up a little bit. Let me tell you what, I have had it this morning with extensions cords. I don't have a lot of space around here, so when I have a bunch of extension cords everywhere, I trip over them a ton and it's a freaking hassle. So I'm gonna have to fix that in the future. All right. This is all cleaned up. Let me go ahead and show you, if I even remember, how this thing tilts. Yep. So you undo this Allen bolt here, and you can rotate this up or down. Well, so that's the max position forward, and it will go all the way to flat. As much as I want to leave that off, there's quite a few hoses and other components down in there that I think are going to get burnt up with, look at that crap. Yeah, we gotta leave this on. You can see I've already melted it a little bit. Got a nice buildup of grind dust scale. I don't know, what's it called when grind gets all caught up and pieces together? I'd be curious what the name of that is, official name of it. Probably be the most handy to use an inclinometer. All right, so it looks like the stop that's built into this, the stop right there, so when you pull this forward, it hits right there. That is actually how I have this mounted up. That's almost perfectly 90. So let's pull it up to that stop, tighten it down. I am shaky this morning. And I haven't even had my coffee. That's a bad sign. It's one of those days. Okay. She's tightened down. Coolio. All right, let's plan this out now. Here is our telescoping tube. Now I'm thinking, I guess I'm just gonna have to weld this to the edge here. Being careful not to pull it one way or the other. What would probably be best is, because there is gonna be some twist to this, if I weld it up just to the side here like that. Let me get you a closer look. So when I weld it up along this edge and on this edge, it's gonna probably pull down a little bit more than it will pull up. And that's gonna twist my square tubing and how it sits relative to up here. So I think what I'm gonna do is probably weld this on. I'm gonna weld this on before I weld anything onto this telescoping tube. That way I can get it, for the most part, set in place. And then if there's any adjustment from side to side I need to make, I can make it in how the upright piece and that top plate fits up to this smaller rec tube here, or this square tube here. I think I can probably put it back pretty far, because it needs to go more in for when it's in that 45 position than it does in the out. So let's, yeah, let's get that welded up on here. I think we can just weld the whole thing up and adjust after that. Yep, let's do that. Tools, tools, tools. There's always tools in the way. I guess that's a good problem to have, right? Man, this sucker's stuck. Those rubber mounts under there. So there's the base plate for that. It's pretty substantial. It's made out of 1/2-inch plate steel, so it's a little overkill, but it works great. Trying to think of if I want my screws. Do I want my adjustment bolts on the side? I feel like I'd want them on the top. I mean on the bottom. To be able to reach under and adjust it. And that way it moves it up and down. But the side's a little bit easier to reach and grab. All right, so I'm gonna use this plate to hold this flush with the top of this plate, but be able to clamp down to it. I gotta grind the paint off the top. instead of mounting the bolts on the right-hand side, locking down your side-to-side motion, I'm really more concerned about the up and down motion of my top plate. So how straight it comes in relative to the plane of my sanding. And this way is going to have a lot more variability. So when it's in real far, there's not much play from that standpoint. In this X and Y plane, there's very little play. However, when I come all the way out to about here, there's a lot of play because you've reduced your distance, which increases your angle, plus this is really far out. So a little motion here is a lot of motion here, and it has a lot of play in that. And even though I can tighten down this bolt on the side, it's still gonna have that play in this up and down motion, which is more important than the side-to-side motion. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn all of this. I'm gonna grind that other edge, and these bolts are gonna be up underneath, mostly because when it's sitting, it's gonna have a tendency to droop this way. With that bolt underneath on the forward side, it's always going to, regardless of if it's all the way back or if it's kind of as far out as it should be, it's going to push that up to where it's very similar from this top plane that it slides on and where that bolt pushes it up to. So it should be very consistent with this bolt being on this side towards the outside. This should make that top plate land at a 90 or be perpendicular to that sanding plane almost every time. I can adjust the sanding plane, but I really don't want to. I want it to be correct here whenever I set it up in that standard 90 degree. So let's twist this, grind the other edge, and we should be good.